What's up guys, Bionic here, and today's Raid Shadow Legends video is going to be a new build that I am using for Athel as a farmer in the Brutal campaign. Now this is nothing new, it's been posted before. There are some builds for the Bellower which can do it probably a little bit faster, but this is simply going to show what we can accomplish if you fine-tune the build, the speed, the crit rate, the crit damage, and so on, so that you can basically reduce the runtime to about 12 seconds. So what I'll do is show you guys a couple of runs. I'll explain what's going on, I'll explain what impacts the speed run drastically, and then I will show her build. But before I start, I do want to point out that this is a member of the community that reached out to me to basically say, hey, by the way, if you want to try this out with these stats, you will see that you can get a runtime of approximately 15 or 18 seconds. So I thought I'd push that a little bit further and put it all together for you guys, run a couple of tests before I actually show you guys what it looks like. So here we go. On the first wave, what we want is to not get a weak hit on the Force Champion, which we did there. Then on the second wave, we want the Cycle of Violence, but Mastery to trigger, so that we get the reset of the cooldown on our AoE. Same thing for the third wave. So 14-second run, that is probably average for the current setup. As you'll see later though, I can improve on this. So same thing, another run here. We got the clear on the first wave, then we got the cooldown reduction for the second wave, and we hope to get the cooldown reduction for the third wave as well. Like I said, which is through Cycle of Violence, but we also need Whirlwind of Death, because that's going to add an 18 speed to our champion, which will ensure that she goes twice before every enemy champion if she has more than 185 speed. So that is something that you need to factor in for her build. However, I found that you can probably even push this a little bit higher, which will guarantee that you can go first before even the champions that are on your team that would be faster than 203 speed. Because if you look at the speed of the enemy champions in this 12-3 stage, they actually have at maximum 101. So if you multiply that by 2, you're actually sitting at 202. So by doing 185 plus 18, you're at 203, just enough. However, if you have like a Diabolus on your own team, she has 105 base speed. That means you would need more than 210. So by pushing it a little bit higher, adding the extra 18 from the Whirlwind of Death, you could also ensure that you go twice before your own champions. So anyway, as you saw there, that was probably one of the worst runs, okay? So 16 seconds. Now we're gonna look at what we can do if we can actually push the frame rates on your computer higher. And what I also did for these next runs is I pushed her speed to 188. And the reason for this is because I noticed that in some runs, the Lord Shazar on the last wave, for whatever reason, would end up going before I go twice. Not sure what was causing that, but it seemed like the 185 was a little too tight. And as you'll see in this run, even 188 is not enough for the Diabolus not to go before you go twice because of what I just explained. So for the next set of runs, what we'll do is replace these 3 champions with the typical 3 Force champions. First wave, we did not get a weak hit, that's what we want. On the second wave, we go through our A1, which triggers a cooldown reduction, then we get our AoE. Same thing on the third wave, and we get it. So 11 seconds, that's probably average of what I'm getting when I unlock the FPS. And now this run here is when things don't go too well. I believe what we're gonna see is that we are not gonna get the trigger of the cooldown reduction on the third wave, which means we end up having to go through the skills of the enemy champions. Okay, so that ends up being a 16-second run, like probably the worst case scenario. Now the next run, when things do line up though, you can actually get a lot better than 16 seconds. In fact, I do believe this is the one that ends up being a 8-second run. So the best run I've had so far using this method with the unlocked FPS sitting at 188 speed, and the other stats that I'll show in just a second. But I think we'll have now just one last run to see what ends up happening. I think this one is another good run, but it's not quite 8 seconds. It's going to be 9 seconds. Yeah. So I think you guys get the picture. So for the build itself, I use 2 sets of critical rate and a cruel set. As I explained, what you really want is the speed. I said 188. I think 193 would be the safe bet, as that would ensure that you beat the Diabolus. You're obviously going to want more than 85% crit rate so that you hit that 100% with her skill. Enough crit damage and enough attack. This is maybe overkill, but at least it's working, so you guys can maybe play around with this until you figure it out exactly, or what's the minimum you need so that you can guarantee that if you get 2 weak hits, the AoE plus the A1 against that first force champion, then you should still be able to kill him. But at least it's working for me with this. You don't really need accuracy, you don't need debuff resistance, you don't even need that much health because you're really not going to get hit at all. But like I said, this is all I had lying around. All of her skills are leveled, and then for the masteries, here's where what's important. Obviously, crit rate, crit damage. You're going to want that increase 5% if you're at full HP. And then we have our Whirlwind of Death, which will give us that 18 speed once we kill the first 3 champions. We're going to use Ruthless Ambush for that extra 8% on the first hit. We're going to then have Cycle of Violence to get that cooldown reduction. Then I went into, this is not really useful, but into Flawless Execution. As for the support tree, it's really not that important. I think, you know, you could get away with basically using either of these. All you really want perhaps is Lore of Steel, and I was using Spirit Haste because before you have 185 speed, and if your champions, the ones that you're leveling, end up dying, then you're going to get a little bit more speed, which will push you over that 203 mark and should allow you to go twice before the champions. But if you don't go twice anyway at that point and you don't have 185 speed, then you got to wait for those enemies to do their skill animations. So like I said, what you really want is to have just enough speed, aim for 193, and use these stats as a reference point to get on average the 12 to 15 second runs. So anyway, that's the build, guys. Like I said in the beginning, you guys might already have a Bellower that's doing this, or perhaps a Saurus, but mine was repurposed to do something else. And since I've been using my Royal Guard, recently I've been shuffling things around. I got my Kale into a poison set, and then Athel was just kind of sitting there, didn't really have any purpose. So I thought I'd put this together, and like I said before, show you guys what it looks like when you can tune it just to the right amount of stats so that it speeds up your farming process quite drastically. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will catch you guys later.